Close meeting order. Welcome everyone. This is the meeting for 22nd June 2023. EPC. We have roll call next.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll start with Bullitt County. Judge Summers in the building. Thank you for joining us, Judge. City of Charlestown.
Here.
Toby Purcell. City of J-Town.
Matt Minier.
Hi, Matt. Anybody from City of Jeffersonville? So, New Albany. I see a picture.
Larry is on here. Yeah, Larry is on here. Claire is going to tag team in around 12:45.
Awesome. City of Shively.
Hello.
Hi, Mayor. Thanks for joining us. City of St. Matthews.
Here, Bernie.
Rick Tolini.
Floyd County. NDOT. Oh, Kathy. See Kathy's name. Yes. Hi, Kathy, if you're there. Jefferson League of Cities. Here. Thank you, Mayor. Who do we have from KYTC? I know we have a few. Here. I see Joe. See Matt Bullock. I see Steve DeWitt. See Tom Hall. I see Tracy Lovell. Thanks for joining us, guys. Louisville Metro.
Nicole George.
Hi, thanks for joining us. Anybody else? So, not now, anyways. Airport Authority usually doesn't join. How about Oldham County? Hi, Kevin. Thank you for joining us, Kevin. Clarksville.
Yeah, Mike Huff's on, and I think I saw Kevin Beatty joined also.
Great, guys. Thank you all for joining us. And I have not seen anybody from TARC yet. They can join us here in a minute. And I'm looking down the list. Do we have any advisory members? Is anybody from Federal Highways on? They're not right now. I think Tanya was going to be out today, so she said she wasn't going to be able to join us today. And with that, we certainly have a quorum there, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, good deal. Thanks everyone for attending. Item number 2 is the May 2023 PPC minutes of the meeting. Motion approved.
We've got some online, I can see it.
Kevin just said approved. Second.
Matt Minier.
Any additional corrections? All in favor, aye? Aye. Those online, if you just raise your hand, please. The minutes are approved. Item number 3, this is a public comment period. Greg, you got it.
All right, did not receive any comments prior to the meeting, and I don't see anything in the Q&A, so I don't believe we have any of this time.
Right. Item number 4, the public involvement report. Greg, here again, please.
All right. Real quick. Go through the highlights for the outreach for the month of May. First off, as always, is our social media analytics and our website numbers. Facebook, we saw a little bit of a drop, which was not real surprising. We did not have, we only had one paid campaign this month or last month versus we had 2 the prior month, so that helped boost our numbers organically. So our numbers are back to a little bit more of what we see on average, 3,400 with 103 engagements. Twitter, though, did see a nice increase. We saw over another 1,000 people impression wise for Twitter, so that's good to see. Another drop a little bit on Instagram, but the engagements were up, so that's another good sign that things can remain strong there. Other good news is our website numbers are up. Main page has almost seen over 300 visitors. Our tip page saw almost 250, and our MTP page saw 162 for last month. All those numbers are up compared to the previous report. We attended several events, Waterfront Wednesday. We also met with CARE as well as Field Trip, discussed some issues last month about just outreach, especially in environmental justice areas with field trip. And we spoke with Kara about different outreach opportunities that we may be able to share or that we know of. So those were both good meetings. Amendment 2, which Chris is going to touch on a little bit more here in just a few minutes, but I wanted to get through the analytics of that. I had an email campaign. We sent out 2 different campaigns. Both, the first one saw higher numbers than we did last month for those campaigns. So that from Amendment 1, that's a good sign. We had a lot more opens. We had more links. Social media saw impressions 4,600 with 164 engagements. We did our typical publishments in the MPO libraries as well as business associations and chamber newsletters. Received 3 comments and 5 project likes, and we held a virtual public meeting on June the 7th. It's public comments. So we received 2 public comments from Waterfront Wednesday. One was just wanting to deal with commuting on a group scale to alleviate tolls from Indiana, Kentucky, and back. Another person we spoke with liked the idea of the Amtrak possibly coming in connection to Chicago. Spoke to her about that and the issue, the ideas that KIPTA is working on. We also received an email. This one is a recommendation to provide access for roads and pedestrians. So let me get that out of the way so I can read that. There we go. So I have a recommendation to provide access to a road for bikes and pedestrians from Furman Boulevard to Dutchman's Lane. There is not a safe route for walking or riding a bike. Going westbound from Furman, a cyclist must pass 2 exit ramps while maneuvering Taylorsville Road. Riding eastbound, there are 3 ramps to deal with. There are not any crosswalks or sidewalks in this area. I live in Heights Point and would love to commute to JCC by bike or ride to the Seneca Park Loop, but it is too dangerous without a path. Can you send my suggestion or tell me who to send it to? So I did send back a reply to her, giving her some information on some projects surrounding this area, not necessarily where she's asking for. And I also told her to contact KYTC as well as Global Metro. All right, just a little quick update. Our Citizens Guide for Transportation Planning. This was a brochure that we've had for years. I mean, I think it goes back to the person that had my job probably 2 people ago. Yeah. We use these to send them out, send out as mailers. We also send them, we also have them out at events and stuff, just so people can get an idea of what KIPTA is and how to participate. That's the biggest thing. So we really needed to kind of do a rebrand on that. It had been a long time. They were fairly old. I hadn't even used them for a long time just due to the fact that they were kind of outdated. As you can see, these are the pages that will go into the brochure. We have what is KIPTA, why transportation planning, and MPO 101. There's a QR code that's going to take you to our website where we have a presentation on MPO 101 that we actually did for the committee, I think about this time last year. It also has our map as well as our core documents, our MTP and our TIP, and a short description for those. I've also included our other plans and programs, the more significant ones, the participation plan, the complete streets policy, our environmental justice resource guide, and our coordinated human services transportation plan. Also did a little bit of a write-up on our RT, on our regional transportation council. That's getting ready to start here in about 20 minutes next door. That was not in the original one, so it was something I added in there so people can get an idea of just some other stuff that we do. I have our TPC member list as well as our advisory members. And then on the final page is like how to get involved. I have QR codes to our TTCC meeting page as well as our TPC meeting page. Email, how to sign up for our transportation newsletter with a QR code, and then all of our social media. So we're hoping to have these out end of July for our next planned events. And that pretty much wraps up my report. If anybody has any questions, I'm glad to take them this time.
Any questions? Hearing none, let's move on to number 5. Then item number 5, amendment number 2 to the Connecting Kentucky and the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and fiscal year 2023 through 2026 transportation improvement program. Chris.
Thank you. On my clicker.
Shoot, I'm sorry. Forgot to put it up there. Awesome.
Thank you. Okay. Presentation for you all. We're going to be addressing amendment 2 to the Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 MTP and the fiscal year 2023 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. As a reminder, this amendment is contingent on federal approval of both of these new documents. We're currently under federal or under review right now. Hopefully we'll get some news on that soon. Okay. Press something to get this going. Okay, thanks. So as a reminder to everybody or hopefully amendments are a method to update the important projects to the MTP and TIP that exceed the administrative modification eligibility. And so that's what we've got here. We requested from all of our sponsors to submit some project updates by May 3rd, excuse me. We took a little time to review those projects. We had a May 17th meeting with the IAC, and we had 10 projects at that time. We decided to break them into 2 groups. The exempt projects are the ones that we have in Amendment 2. Then we have that, and that was 7 of them. In Amendment 3, we have 3 non-exempt projects. We'll talk about that next month. Amendment 2 public comment period ended June 7th, as Greg mentioned. He went into those comments a bit. This little breakdown. Next slide, please. Breakdown of the project updates here for you. The full list you can find online, but just in brief, we have a project from Oldham County, the Manley Old Grange change to the project description. From Louisville Metro, we have a few projects. We have the sidewalk rehabilitation project. That's a new project. We have Eastern Get streetscape improvements. And we did a description modification and so modified the project name. Mutual Road updated the funding and included a new utility scope there. And Safe Streets is a new project that we're from INDOT. We have the new project, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Project. That one's new. And CHART, we have a purchase replacement fixed route buses project, also new. And again, if anyone wants to look at the full project listing details, that's about all I have. We're requesting action on this one to get TPC approval to put amendment 2 into our documents once they approve.
Okay.
Oh, I think this would be 2 separate.
Yes, yes, please. MTP and then.
MTP and the TIP, two different motions.
Yes, please.
Before we take the motion for the MPT, any questions? Motion approval amendment for MPP.
Motion.
Okay, good. Are there any other questions? All in favor for the MPT amendments, say aye, raise your hand. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And also for the TIP, we need a motion to approve the amendments for the TIP.
Motion.
A motion, second? Bernie, second. Any questions for the amendment for the TIP? All in favor, aye, show your hand. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion does carry. Thank you so much. Item number 6 is fiscal year 2024, the planning studies. Andy?
All right, thank you very much. As Greg brings that up, I'd like to recognize Mr. Nick Creevy from Floyd County, who joined us after the roll call. Thank you all. Thanks for joining us, Nick. Carrie Butler's out there and the attendees. We're trying to get her promoted. So Carrie Butler from TARC is on. She's listening. And then also I'd like to recognize Mr. Mark Lord from Congressman Guthrie's office. Thank you for joining us today. All right. Over the last couple of months, I've been talking a little bit about this. This is the so-called PL money, the PL funded studies. This is the money that we have available to us. Go ahead, next slide. I'll walk you through the details. This is the money that we use. The PL funds are the money we get from KYTC and NDOT each and every year to do our planning activities. It keeps the lights on at KIPTA. It pays the salaries of KIPTA staff, of KIPTA VO staff. It can go toward various contracts, data purchases. It goes toward. It can also go toward planning studies that we outsource or we provide to the LPAs. You can see on the screen there what we get each year. It's $1.3 million in change in Kentucky. These are federal funds that pass through KYTC to do metropolitan planning. These are the funds that come via Federal Highways Administration, so that branch of USDOT. In Indiana, it's nearly 400,000. That's what we're scheduled to get in 2024. That is. When we say PL funds, we sometimes, or I sometimes, commingle the PL funds with these things called FTA Section 5303 funds. What those are the Federal Transit Administration version of the same thing. Okay, so we say PL, I'm probably lumping them both in together. For this conversation, we are indeed lumping them together. We get an even 250,000 in Kentucky in 2024. That hadn't changed in several years. And then in Indiana, we get about 73,000. Most of those numbers, not the FTA Kentucky, are up quite a bit with the new infrastructure law from nearly 2 years ago now. All of these funds require an 80-20 local match. Okay. Just like almost all transportation funds, federal transportation funds. The asterisk right there, what's that for, you might wonder? That big dollar amount, that $1.349 million in Kentucky, KYTC pays a portion of that 20% match for us. KYTC pays 5 of the 20%, while we pay the other 15%. So it's not quite 20 all around. The other funds do require a 20% local match, and that match is paid for when KIPTA expends those funds with the local dues that the local agencies pay in the KIPTA. That's how we pay the match. Okay, so just like last year, we're making some of these funds available to the group to do some planning studies in this upcoming fiscal year. We announced a couple of months ago now, I guess, March or April, I suppose, that applications were due in May, and we made $250,000 of our federal allotment available. In other words, this was surplus to our needs this coming year, and important to KIPTA, that local match burden would be shifted to whoever applied for these dollars. Okay. We got 2 applications. One is from the city of J-Town, and the other one was from Louisville Metro. The city of J-Town plan is a study that they'd be doing downtown. Matt, do you want to say, Matt, if you're on the line, you want to say a few words about it, just to describe to the group, please?
Yes, thank you, Andy. Several years ago, we started to get a lot more development pressure in our downtown, and it became apparent that we need to step back and take a strong look at our transportation network that feeds our downtown. We have 2 major arterials that feed the downtown, Hills Road and Waterston Trail, but there's also some other satellite intersections of collector level roadways, as well as local roadways that are becoming congested and exceeding some of the standards that we like to see, at least in our downtown area. And along with the new police department being constructed and the amphitheater, we feel that some of these economic development type projects will have a substantial impact on our downtown. So we want to get ahead of the curve and make sure we look at our transportation needs in our downtown, look at our street networks, and make sure that we are anticipating the future growth that's going to come from that. And then also make sure we look at how we can develop an adequate parking study in order to support some of these infrastructure projects in the future. So that's our goal with the project. As our downtown grows, we need to take a stronger look at some of our existing transportation network.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Mhm.
And then the other one was the Louisville Metro Bike Implementation Plan. I'd be happy to describe that if that's okay with you. The Metro's application said the bike implementation plan will define SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound goals, active transportation goals that Metro can deliver to its residents by making strategic investments in short and medium-term improvements to its street and road network. The bike implementation plan will assess current bike and scooter usage patterns, identify opportunities for all ages and abilities upgrades to be made to the current bike network, and to determine solutions to address critical gaps and missing connections within and to the larger bike network. The bike implementation plan is critical to achieving Metro's adopted goal of eliminating traffic fatalities by 2050 and becoming a net zero community by 2040. So that's the bike implementation plan. Those two studies, you can see in kind of that middle column, they requested 60,000 and 150,000 respectively of federal money. Well, we had 250, that only equals 210. Next slide, please. So, oh, they look alike, there we go. So, this was presented to the TTCC at their meeting last week. And what was proposed to the TTCC, the technical committee that is, and what was approved, recommended for your all's approval here today was the following. That we would, again, remember we had 250 available, $250,000 federal money available, that we would assign 4,000 additional dollars to the J-Town project. Why 4,000? Well, that gets it to an 80-20 split. They had asked for, they'd said that they do 75-25. We said, hey, how's 80-20 sound? In essence, is what this proposal would say. In a similar way, Louisville Metro proposed a 50-50 split. 50-50 split was very similar to the ongoing and I think recently finished or almost finished Louisville Metro ITS prioritization plan that was this current fiscal year. They requested and received similar dollars last year, 150,000 federal, 150 local, as I recall. Well, we had 36,000 additional federal dollars, and so the TTCC recommended that we provide Louisville Metro with those dollars, and that gets us to the 250 that's available. For those counting at home, that equals a 62 to 38% split, which is not 80-20. So, but it's pretty close. It's getting closer. So. Again, that was TTCC's recommendation that was made last week. And with that, we'll be requesting action for the TTC's discussion and or approval of these numbers.
Okay, of the adjustment with TTC.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Well, is any stipulation part of when this money's gonna be spent?
Yes, it is. It needs to be spent by the end of next year. Okay, so that's there's probably a way around that. If there's something for next year, if you're thinking, hey, how about next year? Can I do something like this? We have in the past, we don't like to, but we can stretch it over 2 years to do a bigger project or funding was tighter. This year, we ended up having, frankly, we had more money than we had requests. So that's not really an issue this year, but yeah, for the most part, it should be spent in that fiscal year.
Okay, any other questions before we have a motion? I need a motion to entertain the approval of the planning study as amended, I call it, with the PPC.
Motion.
Second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion does carry. Andy.
Thank you very much.
Item number 7, this is our Indiana dedicated funding. Andy, you're up again, please.
Okay. Last month, our TPC meeting ran over by a few minutes. You might have remembered that. One of the reasons it ran over was because we had a discussion about some things that happened just the prior day, the day before our TPC meeting back in May. And it surrounds some of the dedicated funding that we get in Indiana and some of the end of year moves that we've made and some of the moves that we need to make, at least one move we need to make here today. So that's what the presentation will be about. So thank you, Greg. Just as a reminder, on your screen, what I've shown is this is the money that we get. And when I say we, this is the money that is allocated to the KIPTA MPO for in Indiana, for our southern Indiana communities. So these dollar amounts are odd dollar amounts, but they are formula funded dollar amounts that NDOT provides to all the MPOs and based on population. And here, these are the dollars that KIPTA gets. Okay. So for those from Kentucky jurisdictions in the room, you might say, hey, there's more up there than I know are available to us, and you'd be right. There are a few additional funding streams that are available in Indiana. The largest funding stream in both states is the STBG program. Okay, so in Indiana, that's that top line number of $3.5 million. Kentucky, for those wondering, that's the one we get about 23 million, almost 24 million on the Kentucky side for that. HSIP is the safety funds. Okay, CMAC, congestion mitigation, air quality. That's for projects that improve air quality. TA, transportation alternatives, sidewalk, trails, bike paths. Section 164, that's unique to Indiana, or at least unique to the region of Indiana. That's safety funds. Those can go to safety funds. I don't remember exactly what section 164 is. I believe it has something to do with like when states open alcohol container laws and legislation or something like that. So Indiana has some money that not a whole lot of states have. I don't remember, so I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but nonetheless, it's money on our books. CRP is carbon reduction program. So that's like CMAC, as we've heard it described. It's CMAC for all. CMAC's not eligible for all areas, but CRP is. And then there's protects a sustainability type new funding source. When it's all said and done, it's about $6 million. This current year, fiscal 23, we actually had a little bit more money at the start of the year. And that money, even though it's a use it or lose it system in Indiana, we had some CRISA money. CRISA is the coronavirus stimulus money. We have $1.2 million in change. Our CRISA money program to the Clarksville's Riverside Drive project. And then since the IIJA was I guess authorized mid FY 22, we had some FY 22 funds that were allowed to basically be carried over or that we could spend in FY 23. So that's the story. That's the every year story. So going forward in FY 24, we should expect to get those amounts of money for our programming purposes, and we have them all programmed, quite frankly. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so what are we talking about here, though? Or why are we talking about this right now? We've got issues with our end of the year use it or lose it system, and the issues with what we need to do and to ensure that money stays here local in our region, which is a top priority of this TPC, I think, and I'm confident of that, and of the LPAs that have access to this money in Southern Indiana. Put together a little bit of timeline to tell a little bit of a story here. Back on March 24th, the group of Southern Indiana LPA representatives, basically TTCC reps, if you will, TPC reps too, I suppose. We met on March 24th over in Clarksville to discuss what we do every quarter. That is the quarterly progress updates of all of the projects that are going to receive those dedicated funds, those funds that we showed on the prior slide. So they meet every quarter, and we met then, and we talked about how there's a project in Clarksville that had an April lettings get administered by NDOT in Indiana. And it was for Riverside. Riverside Drive is immediately right across the Ohio River. It's what the first road you see as you look across from downtown Louisville. And that project was, with the inflation, a lot of projects were not awardable. Okay, and that's what happened. Some of you all remember us talking about this last time. It wasn't awardable in part because it was over the bids were way over 15%. 15% is the threshold in Indiana that you can award a project. What that did, that immediately put some money at risk, you could say. That project had 1.7 million in the SCBG funds, a good chunk of our funds for the year. As you recall, it was about 3.5 that we get, and 1.2 million of the CRISA. But back on March 24th, the group made a contingency plan. We said, hey, this could happen. What's going to happen if this happens? And so we said that we would apply some of that money, that 1.7 million, some of that 1.7 to some other projects. Much of it going back to Clarksville, by the way. So to help them, you know, when they get around to Riverside Drive, the next letting of it, among a couple other changes. And we approved, this body approved basically that contingency plan, the move that those money moves that were devised back on March 24th. We did that in our April meeting. We did that via TIP administrative modification. It was just funding changes to projects, and we submitted those to NDOT that same day. So that was April. Well, let me step back. Remember, Riverside Drive had 1.7 of STBG and had 1.2 of CRISA. Well, the CRISA we thought was safe until September of 2024. That's when Congress said those funds were available until, but it got caught up in the, as we've spoken about before, got caught up in the, the debt ceiling talks. Okay, so more on that in a second. So there's that. So let me keep going with this story. So on May 10th, we had another project, Montgomery Avenue in Clarksville, 9th Street in Jeffersonville. It's a joint project. Those roads join at the city and county boundaries. And so that was a project that was going to get these funds. Okay, we were going to give a lot of money to that project. That helped Clarksville out next year to get to Riverside Drive. Okay, so on May 24th, the day before TPC last month, we had a plan in place, or we put a plan in place, and all the LPAs agreed in principle to ship that money there. But then later that same morning, that CRISA money evaporated because of that debt ceiling crisis. That money, any unobligated CRISA funds, even though they had a deadline of September of 2024, were at severe risk when Congress approved that bill, and technically, I suppose when the president signed that bill, probably a week and a half later after that. So NDOT informed us on that morning that they're going to take that CRISA money and they're going to put it at Montgomery Avenue. Okay, remember, we were going to give money to them. We had plenty of money. We were going to get to Montgomery Avenue. They also informed us that the moves that we made in administrative modification 45 were invalid. We turned those in on April 27th. They had a May 1st deadline, was our understanding, but we were told on May 24th that those additional monies that went to New Albany and to Clarksville were not done in time, is what we were told. So we could have done them any earlier. Remember, none of this broke free until April. So fast forward to earlier this week, we had our summertime quarterly progress meeting. Tubby was there, several others were there, and we discussed all this stuff. And we came up with another plan in place, and there's been discussions with TARC about some of these plans. We have to make a move in the next few days, okay? Let's go to the next slide, please. And I'll jump right to it. The bottom line is, I mentioned this number last month. The bottom line is we have 2.9 million because of all these things. With the CRISA money being thrown at the project, we were getting ready to throw money at. With those money moves that we made that this body approved in April being deemed invalid by NDOT, all of a sudden we've got, quite frankly, a way too big of a number, quite frankly, an embarrassing number of $2.9 million that are at risk of being lost. We don't get what did I have up there? 5.9. This past year we had about 8. We had 8 because of those other dollar amounts. But nonetheless, that's still way too high. At this time, there really isn't another option available to us other than moving what they call flexing the money. Flexing the FHWA money, if you will, to the FTA money from highways to transit. In this case, it would be flexing it to TARC or flexing it to technically FTA Region 4, the Southeast region of the Federal Transit Administration. Okay. That money is not all that flexible. We are flexing it, but excuse the dual use of the term. It's not that flexible because it's limited to capital projects. Can't use it for operating. By and large, can't use it for operating. With discussions with TARC, Ms. Butler, TARC has recommended that the money be applied to a specific project. Okay, that project happens to be KIPT ID 3169. It's called non-fixed route ADA paratransit service. It was thought to be a fairly flexible project in terms of where those dollars could be applied in the coming year. And that we would, as a last resort, last resort to this body, would keep that money local and provide that money to TARP. I think I saw Carrie join the line. Carrie, is there anything more you'd like to say, Ms. Butler, on that project? Was she on there? Thought I saw her face a minute ago.
Hi, yeah, I
Yeah.
was trying to get off mute. Yeah, thank you. So we have the opportunity, as Andy mentioned, to apply these funds to our non-fixed route service, essentially our paratransit service, and apply those costs to what we call the cost of contracting or the preventive maintenance cost. So we do have the opportunity to use them, and I really appreciate the opportunity that we've been given, and I can assure you that we will be supporters of future Indiana projects, or remain supporters of Indiana projects if we're able to make this happen. Because I understand this is probably very disappointing for some of the specific projects that Indiana and Clarksville had planned. So we appreciate the support, and we're happy to help in this manner if we can.
Thank you, Carrie. This isn't something that we like to do or like to even recommend that we do, but this, and while this agency, this TPC is always going to be in support of TARP, and this shows it even further if it needed to be improved. At all at the same time, we don't want to be in this spot next year. Hopefully that says $29 or 29 cents next year, not $2.9 million. So with that, that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions, provide any clarity that we can provide. Chris, did I say most of that correctly in terms of how those events transpire?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you made the comment I've already thought of. Next year, it's not gonna get any better with the same rules and regulations, is it?
Well,
With Indiana, I'm talking about 15% unless engineered.
so this is true probably across this country, is the inflation that's biting everything. And if your engineer cost estimate wasn't made yesterday or maybe earlier today, it's probably out of date and it's probably too low.
Sure. But then again, here's two projects in Indiana that not getting done, they've probably been planned for years to happen. Will next year be able to do those projects?
So that remains to be seen. Montgomery Avenue did get awarded. It got blessed with the CRISA dollars, from Riverside Drive went to Montgomery. So it's going to go forward. It had a May letting. That was that. I failed to mention this. That was that project's second bite at the apple. That was its second letting. It was unawardable back, I think, over the winter, and then it came back in May. The Riverside Drive project had the April letting that was unawardable. At this time, it appears that it's heading toward a September letting. So several months from now, we know whether or not that's going to happen or it's awardable again. We hope it is. But until additional money comes to the surface, there is talk of a little bit of federal money that might be available. And we've been talking to Clarksville and with NDOT about that. There's no guarantee about that. But you're right, that project at this time appears to be just a burden on Clarksville, and that's unfortunate because we were getting ready to make a move that gave them a lot of extra federal money this year to ease their burden next year. Is truly what we were trying to do.
But it's a bad use. When I say as a business owner, that's a bad use of money and not anything against CART, but you give them 2.9 million that they hadn't planned on. I won't say it's wasted money, but that's a lot of money just to be able to, if it's not spent wisely, it just goes against my grain.
Well, I'll say this. I hope I can speak to the Indiana LPAs in saying so. There are next to no other opportunities to do roadway projects of any size other than those $5.9 million that we put up there.
Your back's just a wall,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, and if there was flexibility at all, again, this is not a problem in Kentucky because we're doing so well in Kentucky at spending money. It's not a problem in Kentucky because Kentucky money can be carried over.
I know.
And so we've got the exact opposite extreme in Kentucky.
Do you see Indiana changing their rules or relaxing a little bit?
So there was a change in state law made in this session that relaxed one of the rules that said something to the effect. I know Kevin can speak to this better than I can. Maybe That is like, there used to be a threshold of $1 million, like you had to meet certain stipulations if your project was $1 million and above. Or if it was below 1 million, you had flexibility. Now that has been raised to 3.
Right.
Okay. There's still some stipulations that are required part of that. So that's getting worse. I was on a call this morning with Indiana Appeal Council. One of the things that somebody else is mentioning, I'm sure some of the folks in the room have seen this. For any projects that deal with with buses for sure, but probably signal equipment, electrical equipment. Apparently there's 10 to 12 to 18 month delays on these things. Okay, and so as you be, and a big part of that apparently is the what's it called? The Buy America, Build America provisions, right? That there's just such a demand for it, and perhaps that's inflation increasing as well, and it's certainly delay increasing, and time is money, and now more than ever. A project estimate that was done a year ago is out of date, and it's maybe not even awardable. It's not even that, doesn't even get that 15% threshold.
I know some of the jobs that I work for, my company, it's just, it doesn't take but one item, if you can't get it, you can't finish the job. Well, what's on Indiana's, they need to real quiet.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi. I'd like to have a better understanding of the proposed project from TARC. So I see the KIPTA ID here, but it doesn't look like a description of this project was included within the packet. So I'd like to see that and know if the routes are going to be affected in New Albany and in Clarksville. And on June 6th, city engineer sent a letter to NDOT, and we have yet to receive a response from them. And I'm personally am not comfortable voting until we have an explanation from NDOT and a response.
This is Carrie from TARC. I can't speak to the response from NDOT, but I can let you know a little bit more about the project and sort of answer speak to one of the comments that was made. TARC currently has both a capital backlog of projects in the region and our bi-state multi-county region, as well as a need to provide additional service. So while we did not necessarily have a project planned for Southern Indiana in this manner, we certainly know that there is a need to provide additional public transit, whether that's fixed route or paratransit or experimental other types of service in Indiana. We get requests for that quite a bit from different businesses, have spoken to elected officials on both sides of the river, but specifically for Indiana. So while we didn't necessarily have a project, it was because we didn't have the funds available to us to do that project. So the purpose of this project would be, in fact, to provide, non-fixed route service in Southern Indiana, whether that is paratransit, demand response, or other experimental type service. And then if there were opportunities for us to, purchase vehicles, which is part of those funds, how they're described in the federal regulations, we would do that as needed.
Ms. Butler, in Middletown, I know there's some routes that's cut because of funding. Will this alleviate that and bring those routes back?
So these are Indiana dollars, as best I can tell. So the service would have to be focused on Southern Indiana. I've said it before, and I'll probably continue to keep saying it. TARC has had the same revenue base since 1974. Our region has grown tremendously since 1974, and those tax revenues haven't kept pace overall with the need that we have to provide more service. So that was some of the changes that we made in Middletown to remove some of the express trips. But any grant funds that we can get will help us, keep service on the street a little bit longer.
As to the timing question, this is something that we have to. Probably it's a now or never action, okay? Because of the June 30th deadline, this money would leave the region on July 1st.
Well, Claire, were you sufficiently answered? Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. I still would like to hear from NDOT. I think that Kathy Eaton is on this call.
Yes,
you know,
I can tell you that letter is on its way. I reviewed it this morning and Tony McClellan is finalizing it. There is no way to recoup those funds. They are gone. So I'm like Andy, yeah, there needs to be some action taken today because you have till the end of June to make that decision on what to do with that 2.9.
Other questions?
Yes, so if the funds are gone, why do we have any action to take?
Because FTA allows you to take any funding left and transfer that to them by the end of June. That's the only option. There's an FTA component to that they allow you to transfer any funding that you do not use in the state's fiscal year to them by the end of June.
This is clearly a last resort. There's make no mistake about it. And again, we love TARC here. But this is I hate to say it's a last resort when it equals money for TARC. We don't like the rules, but those are the rules, and we can choose at this time. The options appear to be provide the money to TARC, or the money goes up to Indianapolis and it gets spent, not necessarily not in this region, but you know, somewhere in Indiana, and you know, we're but 2 counties in Indiana.
If it goes back to Indiana, would it, Ken, and that's a loaded question, I know, would it be, you think, re-diverted back as additional funding?
That seems unlikely.
No.
Okay, other questions, and we'll call for a vote here, and anyone?
I mean, I think that, you know, when the city sent the letter to NDOT, I just wanted to clarify that we very much were looking for a clarification on how NDOT could make a decision that would invalidate a vote by a board, by a KIPTA board. So
Claire, how that is that the board made that decision on the 27th of April, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong on any of these dates.
Sure.
There is a process that everything has to go through. So first of all, the board approves that in their tip. Then it comes to NDOT and it's got to be put in the STIP. That's not something that happens overnight. Federal Highway you have to send that over to Federal Highway. Federal Highway has to approve it before it can go into the STIP. Those processes that happen after your board vote. You didn't have enough time built into that for us to get that approved. That was the reason, even though the board approved it as such, it didn't have enough time to go through the remaining part of the process in order to get those funds obligated in the time manner that they had to be obligated by.
Just to maybe clarify, those dates are right, and KIPTA staff submitted that during the KIPTA board. For those who don't know, the KIPTA board meets immediately after this. While some of us were in the KIPTA board meeting, KIPTA staff they submitted it, you know, 30 minutes after this meeting ended on April 23rd.
Right, but just to get a modification alone through Federal Highway, there has to be a 7-day comment period put out on NDOT's website for anyone to comment about those. So even with the 7-day, even with a simple modification, there wasn't enough time to get those funds put into FEMA to get Federal Highway to approve them by May 4th at noon.
But isn't that the same thing that happened with the Montgomery, the switch that NDOT did? So why didn't it have to go through, why did that modification not have the same time constraint?
What, I guess I'm a little bit lost on that. What do you mean same time? Everything has the same time constraint. You can't just put something in the tip and expect it to immediately get FEMA's authorization. So go back and tell me what your question was again.
So NDOT made the same money move that we were requesting, a little different, but to the Montgomery Avenue project later than we did with our request on April 27th.
Because what that was, is that was when Federal Highway notified NDOT that all those COVID relief monies were going away. So you were either gonna lose those COVID relief monies or you were gonna lose annual allocation monies. So NDOT went ahead and made the decision to take the COVID relief money and put it to that other project that let in May. It does, I mean, it washes its way out in the washing machine, no matter which way you went. I lost 30 million. I mean, I sat here and I had all my COVID relief money going to projects in July, August, and September. So I theoretically lost 30 million. So the local rural program in Indiana did. I know that doesn't make you feel any better, but I'm not treated any differently than you guys are.
As a reminder, not to put NDOT on the spot, but for those in Kentucky that have the CRISA funds to their projects, KYTC is committed to putting the dollar for dollar back into those projects. There may be some local match concerns. We talked about that a little bit. We can talk about that a little another day, but it's an Indiana issue here.
All right, we're gonna, sound like we need to make a motion and a second and a vote for this. And correct me, but I think the motion is gonna read basically that the Indiana funding would be diverted to TARP. Flex
to TARP, flex to FTA.
Stretching the dollars, flex.
It's something.
Okay, did everybody understand the motion of what we're saying? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right, have a second.
I'll second it.
We lost audio.
We can't hear anything.
Can you hear us now, Kurt? Yeah, Nick.
We got it.
Okay, then here's now. Let's try that again.
Oh, okay, we'll have a motion in a second. All in favor, aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Got it?
I've got a visual anyway. Yeah.
Opposed?
Okay, we have opposed. We have 2 opposed. Those that we can't see your screen, we've got 2 opposed, Clarksville and New Albany's as opposed. Anybody else? We have Clarksville and New Albany? Charlestown as well. Okay, so we have 3. Okay. Okay, and those 4, if you can we get another raise of hands for those that were for it? We had, I think,
Those that are for it,
mhm,
raise your hand, please.
including the rest. 4, 5, 6, 7.
Ray Johnson also raised your hand.
I believe it's an 8-3.
8-3, okay. The motion does carry. Thank you. And just one last comment, we'll move on to number 8, but let's please look real hard for this next year and see if we can, no way to skin the cat. Get out of this.
At our meeting on Monday, that was a big part of the discussion, is like, look, we cannot get ourselves in this situation yet. Nobody did anything wrong. And so that's the hardest part about this, is that we are the group. The inflation. Yeah, so yes.
All right, good. Item 8, urbanized area boundaries. Chris? Jen?
Be a
Good.
legal one. Have a slideshow and like. So as a reminder, last month at TBC, we requested and got approval of our plans to take our show on the road and have a few meetings. Some of you over there. all planners and all leaders to work on the delineation of the adjusted street. So at this point, we've had meetings. We took our show on the road with some large paper maps, and also we have an interactive mapping tool to get the GIS down and just send it out. Some of the criteria that I've previously gone through, and I got some feedback of areas that are expected to grow, and maybe other feedback on areas that maybe not so much from the expectations of 2010. We submitted our final shapefile today to KYTC and INDOT. And so that process is complete thus far. See, I made a table of our meeting dates just for reference here. Yeah. So I've got a little bit of a review, super technical jargon, our jagged and our smooth boundary. What does that mean? Jagged boundary is the census determined urban area. So that's what we got out back late December, early January, and it's maps from the census. And that's the region, that's the area that shrunk, okay? The smooth boundary, or sometimes called the adjusted boundary, that's what previous years have called the federal aid urbanized area boundary. That's what we worked on at the meetings, and ultimately present to you all. First, we'll talk a little bit more about the jagged boundary. Okay. This is the map that I've shown in, I think, most of my presentations. This is the jagged boundary if you add all of these colors together. Well, actually, if you add the yellow and the green together, the newly gained territory is displayed in green. The yellow is where we were at, and the new was added to that. So that's the jagged boundary. The red is the territory that the Louisville, Jefferson County urban area lost. However, also included in that red area are new separate UZAs, Washington Range, and Charlestown was a separate UZA back in 2010, and it still is and again, the total is the yellow plus the green there of the jagged boundary. Here's a little evolution from 2000 to 2020 of the jagged boundary. Criteria changes and also population change evolved in this way. I want to note too that now in 2020, the census uses housing density as opposed to population density in their criteria. So that was one of the major changes of a few others. This page, this slide, is showing you all of the jagged boundaries that are in the KIPTA MPA area. The larger one, that's the Louisville one. And then also a slide showing separate jagged boundaries of Charlestown, LaGrange, and Washington here. And again, these are all within our KIPTA MPA area. And so going off of the census jagged boundary, we use that to guide our planning for the smooth boundary. That, and also we heavily relied on what we knew from 2010 and even a little bit 2000 of previous smooth boundaries. And this is where we landed. The final product, we went ahead and made one smooth boundary. Still have the different smaller UZAs in their respective color, but what this is displaying here is one adjusted boundary, all inclusive. Let's see. Things we considered also was, again, which areas we felt were going to be urbanized by 2030, because that's the next time that we'll have an opportunity to do this again. It's rather difficult to make a nice even shape, but this is about as smooth as we could possibly get it. We have the boundary along features and also in some cases. Yeah, so that's about what I've got for you all. I'll take questions. Andy, did you have?
Yeah, that's a cool point right there. Is probably the key thing on the last one. You know, while it is one giant polygon, it is the result of the individual meeting. Okay, yeah, what was suggested at those meetings is what's represented here as well. As a regional.
That's right. So there's some next steps on our end. Really, all I will have for you for this is I will keep everybody updated if we get any new communication, whether or not they're going to accept proposal, or potentially the departments or the department in the end the say. So once we know what's going to stick, give everybody an update at that point. And so there potentially could be updates to what the implication of this move back is. Keep you informed. And I said this at the TTCC meeting, but again, and different who wasn't there, thank you everybody who helped in the process. It was a very collaborative process, and fun to get to work with you all and some of the local places. No action on this.
Any questions? Thanks so much, Chris. Appreciate it. Item number 9 is next to last believe, and that is administrative modification for fiscal year 2023 to 2026. Chris, will you do something?
Thank you, Fran. Okay, so we're still, again, awaiting our federal approval of the new MTP and TIP. So this is all contingent on that. And we're really just still in the final draft phase of this one. But we have first administrative modification that we'll be doing to the new TIP prepared. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. It's going to be a very large administrative modification. It's a collection of the project changes that we received after our final drafts of the new TIP and MTP went to public. So at that point, we couldn't put those last few in because we started in its review. So we do have a few amendments from the previous TIP, as well as a handful of changes that were communicated to us. And I have the table explaining that. One thing that I do want to note is Andy referenced it earlier, administrative modification 45 back on April 27th. It included both Kentucky and Indiana projects. And as now in our respective admin 1 to the new TIP, we only have the Kentucky included in that. We'll have to figure out any further modifications for the Indiana, unfortunately. I talked about this at the TTCC meeting. We are putting together a link study for users to review the project changes that we have in there do the project list that we have in there, see if it's what you are expecting, because some of these changes were communicated to us, you know, quite a while ago, started in the end of March, I think. So, just if you have the time, please go ahead and look and make sure it's what you're expecting, and let me know if there are anything that need to be changed. I want to add that we're not looking for new project changes. We're just trying to make sure that we have for the ones that have been kind of on hold until we get the new tip. Yeah. Another kind of really important thing that I want to cover, I did this in the TTCC, but I'm gonna go over it again quickly. All of these are contingent to federal approval of the new MTP and TIP, like I said, but we have admin mod 1 as well as amendments 1 and 2 and 3. And we have to do them in a certain order because the project changes. Sometimes we're the same project making a change here, and then, oh, now we need to make an admin here. Oh, that same project needs to be in amendment 3. So we have to do it in a certain way. Amendment 1, we've already gotten TPC approval back last month. Amendment 2, we got that today. Admin mod 1, that will go into effect. We'll put that out. It could be anytime right after we get approval of the new MTP and TIP. Amendment 3, that's going to be explored in detail at the July TTCC and TPC meeting. So because we're doing things in that room, we're also going to need to Indiana and Kentucky STIPs apply them in the same order. The changes should make conflict a little bit. And then the action on this is information only. Again, I'm going to put that list up hopefully today, and I'll send the group the link to the list.
Any questions to Chris on the administration modification we're talking about? Okay, hearing none. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it. Item number 10, this is the MPO Director's Report. You're up, sir.
Just to follow up on that last one, please do take a look at that list when it gets posted, because there's lots of changes. It's going to be the mother of all admin mods. Usually it's a few projects. This one's a monster. So please do take a look at that. I've got several announcements and things to mention here before we close here. I want to introduce Mr. Brady Hill to the group. Brady Hill is a transportation planner that KIPTA has hired. Brady started at the beginning of the month. And so as much as the TIP presentations have been a nonstop Chris Nicholas show, maybe Brady can ease some of Chris's burden, and before you know it, Brady will be up there in front of you guys. So I want to welcome Brady to the team. To Brady's right is Mr. Kyle Thorne. Kyle Thorne started at KIPTA just this week, just on Monday, as a matter of fact. Kyle's a recent grad from UK, and he's joining us, and he'll be working on a lot of different things. At first, one of the things that I've talked to Kyle a lot about getting really focused on is the all these discretionary grants that are out there, and the transportation discretionary grants, so that Kyle and KIPTA staff can be a resource to you all, that you can make sure that everything, that those things that are out there, because the game has changed, right? The game has changed. Those things didn't exist years ago. Now they exist. It's up to agencies like us and KYC and NDOT to pay close attention to those and follow those rules and get that money. Get as much money as we can bring to this region, right? So that'll be one of Kyle's early tasks. I can hear him laughing and giggling in the next room next door, but Mr. Randall Embry, many of y'all know Randall Embry. Randall's been at KIPTA for over 20 years. He coordinates our rural transportation program. He's running the RTC, Regional Transportation Council meeting next door. Randall is retiring at the end of next week, so I want to recognize him here. I know he's not here. We'll talk about it in the board meeting, we'll present the board meeting, so we'll say goodbye to Randall this month. The MTP and TIP update, Chris mentioned this a minute ago. We saw a letter that came from EPA just yesterday, late yesterday afternoon. They're recommending approval of it, conformity finding of our MTP and TIP update. That's real exciting news. Federal Highways Kentucky Division has the final say on that. They collected, all the comments, all the suggestions from their federal partners. Hope to hear some real good news soon there. Amendment 3 Chris mentioned next month. Public review starts tomorrow, Greg, is that right?
Yes.
Public review starts tomorrow. The air quality component of that is done. We're gonna pass, or it passes, so we're in good shape. So Amendment 3 is looking pretty good right now for next month. Amendment 4, we didn't talk about Amendment 4, but there's 4 comes after 3. While we won't do 4 months in a row amendments, sometime this fall we'll do Amendment 4. So be looking for some information from us pretty soon, and probably maybe I'll take this opportunity to remind everybody in the room, and virtually and in the room, you can send us your projects anytime. If you have project changes, send them to us, okay? Don't wait until the day before we said the deadline is. Send them right now. We will get that project in the fastest track we can get it in, whether that means an administrative modification or an amendment. But don't be shy. Don't be shy. Send those projects into us when you have them. If there's something that a back and forth that we need to have, that makes that process a little bit easier. Oh, what else do I have on here? A couple agencies. I talked to a few Indiana agencies the other day at our meeting on Monday. Anybody that's going to invoice KIPTA for some money here soon for fiscal year 23 planning funds, all these planning studies and whatnot that are out there. There's not a lot. There's a few, but you all know who you are. We need those. We need those to us probably, but in the first several days of July. So maybe the first week of July, please. Safe Streets and Roads for All. That's the safety grant that everybody in this room is a part of. Nearly everybody in the room, I suppose. We'll be discussing a little bit at the board meeting today. But what you need to know about that is that the proposals are due to KIPTA. It's out on the street right now. The proposals are due to KIPTA next Wednesday. And so we hope we get a whole bunch of proposals from all the sharpest minds of safety planners and engineers in our region and beyond. We hope to have a contractor selected by sometime in July and maybe get rolling in August. And be probably a 12-month process, 12 to 18-month process from there. 2 more things. One is the passenger rail grant. I think somebody mentioned that in the public comment. I don't have anything to report. If you're wondering about that, that's what I'm reporting. Is that we don't know. We're told. First time we heard this summer, and I heard somebody say this fall. So we'll see. Could be any week, any month now. So hopefully there's some good news there. Last but not least, on my announcements, for those of you that are on the KIPTA board of directors, there's some other meetings going on today, and maybe a couple folks out of town or on vacation or whatnot. If you're on the KIPTA board, please do stick around. Please plan to stick around if at all possible for the KIPTA board meeting that starts here in about 15 minutes. That concludes that report.
All right, good deal. Any other business to come before this board? I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, motion and second, all in favor, aye? Aye. I'll see you too, so we can leave.
Bye, everybody.
Just in time.